Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to run you through how to register a new account and set up the required two-factor authentication on the Mandate platform for voter management. Now I shall say up front that in order for this video to go out quickly and not be further delayed, I have not prepared an in-depth script for this video and shall be mostly going as it comes. So this may be a little rougher than by normal production standards, but hopefully at the end of this you'll be able to register on the platform, register your two-factor authentication, and be ready for actual registration of voters within the system. Now, I'm going to do this in a few stages. First, I'm going to run over the installation of the two-factor authentication application within your smartphone, as in order to use the Mandate platform and manage the secure authentication, you need both your desktop PC or a laptop if you only have a laptop, and your smart mobile telephone. But ideally, for working on the platform, you do want to use your PC and not try and perform your voter management using a smartphone interface, because it's going to be too small to see what you're doing, awkward. It's just going to take you a lot more time to perform the same tasks, and it's just not a good habit to get into. So for this you need a laptop, and for the two-factor authentication it will be using your smart telephone. Now, about the two-factor authentication, for those of you who are not familiar with it as an authentication schema, is basically the current standard for authentication on the internet these days, because, well, passwords, they can be stolen, they can be guessed, they can be leaked out, whereas a two-factor authentication adds an extra piece of an extra piece of substance to the puzzle, really, because it's like having a bank card and a PIN code. Like, if somebody knows your PIN code but they don't have your bank card, they still can't take any money out. If they have a bank card but don't know the PIN code, the card is useful to you and the machine eats it. Two-factor authentication is kind of like this in a way, and it is what those of us in the information security industry refer to as 2 points of entropy. The first point is something you have, which is your two-factor device, such as your mobile telephone. And the second point of entropy is something you know, which is your password. So unless they have both factor points of entropy, then they can't really do much with it. So this is being required by default on the platform, because due to the sensitive nature of the data, because we are collecting personal data for political purposes of our potential voter base, and so we need to protect this database and maintain security practices in line with both, well, doing the best we can, as on top of staying in line with European level legal requirements, regulations such as the GDPR. So first up, I'm going to run through how to install this on your mobile telephone. Now, so for this you'll need a mobile telephone, of course, and I am going to perform this instructional and run through using an Android telephone, though the authentication application is also on iOS and the Apple application store. So those of you who are familiar or use Apple devices, you will be able to basically find this application and install it basically the Apple way, which unfortunately I am not able to run you through because I have never owned or used an Apple device. So it's the best we can do, really. Now, For this part of the demonstration, I'm not using an actual telephone, but a telephone emulator, which allows me to interact with a telephone interface on my desktop and telephone applications on my desktop. Because obviously, streaming and recording this video on a desktop and a smartphone at the same time is going to be a little bit impractical. But this should be clear enough. Okay then, so if this is our telephone here, to install it on Android, you go to the Play Store, the same as you would any other telephone application. Give it a click there. There we go. Here's the Play Store. In the search box, the authentication application I recommend using is called Authy. Authy. Type that in the box there, and it is this application here. Twilio Ortho two-factor authentication. So click on this, and it is by Authy, and so you know you are installing the correct application. So click install. And when it's installed, you can then open the application, and it will look like this on your telephone. Now, the first step when you install it, it will want you to verify your telephone number and your device to make sure, because this is a secure authentication system, it will verify against the actual hardware you're installing the application on and registering the mandate application within. But basically, it's extra points of security, so other people, even if they try to lift your device, they won't be able to then steal your two-factor authentication token so easily. Now I'm going to go back to the main screen while I register this, because it's going to ask me some personal information, which I do not want in the video, but the basic process will be clear and straightforward when you work through it like you would any other Android application that has a modicum of security as part of its design. So I enter my mobile number, yes. And I want to register. Good. Send me a message to my device there. To verify my phone number, so I'll just enter that in, 971. There we go. Now this is installed, I can show you this. This is Authy. It's a fairly straightforward interface. Down the bottom oops, wait, I need to just clear that out while I unlock my database, as there's an extra point of security if you're importing it on a new device. But if this is the first time installing it, you won't see that extra step. So there we go. So it's fairly straightforward. There's a list of websites and applications you have registered for two-factor authentication in this application. As you'll see, this won't just be for use with Mandate, but pretty much all major web services on the internet support two-factor authentication using this application now. So once you've learned and become comfortable to use this for Mandate, it will actually help you to secure your social media, your email, everything else you do online to a far greater degree as a bonus. So these few extra steps will make your life better and more secure on the internet, as well as, well, shoring up the security of our valuable voter data. So the interface is that when you select something registered, it just selects what you have selected and a 6-digit code. And so what happens is this 6-digit code is constantly changing. It changes every minute. So when you register and log in, you enter your regular username and password, and when it asks for the two-factor code, you then enter this constantly changing 6-digit number. So it's a unique login code every single time. that changes over time, and so that even if somebody guesses your username and password, because this code is ever changing, they will never be able to guess this with any kind of it isn't going to happen, and if it does happen, then you should probably run out and buy a lottery ticket, because even winning the lottery has a higher chance than somebody guessing your two-factor code correctly within a single 1 minute interval just once. So now we've covered this, we will run through registering an account on the Mandate platform for you. We just set this up. There we go. And when you are asked to register, you'll be provided this URL immediately. So you won't need to remember this in the video, and the registration codes will be provided to you as part of your invitation to join the platform, basically. So now I have this ready, I will switch back to this theme. So this is the registration screen where you will register your new account. Now the top field here listed code. Basically, when you register, when you're invited to register, you will be given a unique registration code which you will need to enter to verify to this form that you have been given permission to register. The reason for this is so that if somebody else discovers the registration URL, they won't be able to spam fraudulent account registration attempts and waste all our time without the registration code, which will change and be unique to you. The code I am using today will not be the code that is given to you, and so it is just a code for the sake of this demonstration. So if you enter your code, you enter your name. What should we call myself? Enthusiastic volunteer. Okay then, Mr. or Mrs. Volunteer. And the name would be your name, obviously, not enthusiastic volunteer, but the email would be your email address. And a password will be a password for you to choose, anything you like, within reason. That will be unique to you. So when you've entered all this information, you click the register button. Okay, because you're doing this on your PC, and I did say you're going to do this on your PC or your laptop and not your telephone, because when you go to do the two-factor, which happens using your telephone, you're going to have trouble if you're doing a two-factor on your telephone and trying to interact with this on your telephone. So both using your PC or your laptop and your telephone is required here. Now, the first time you log in, it's going to tell you that two-factor authentication is not enabled. This is because it is absolutely required to be enabled at all times as a security feature, and if it is disabled, has yet to be set up and enabled, or you disable yourself, then your account will effectively disable itself, so that if that was to happen and you were to forget about it and then somebody was to discover your password after the fact, it would not leave a forward-facing security vulnerability which would catch you out in the future. But at this point, we click Set Up and Enable Now, which takes you to the user profile screen, such as where you can update your name, you can update your email address. If you update either of these, you click the Save button here. If you scroll down a little, it gives you the option to update your password, where you have to enter your current password, then your new password twice, again a Save button here. These are some security options. The option at the bottom, Delete Account, completely removes your Officer account from the system and locks you out, and you will not be able to rejoin the platform if you click this button without asking for a new sign-up code and advice and being reintegrated into the system. But for example, if you wanted to resign, shut down and never handle this again, then the Delete Account button would cleanly lock you out of the system yourself. Log out over browser sessions. Basically, if you were logged in from multiple locations, this would log out every other location but here. But we don't need these now. What we need now is to set up the two-factor authentication. So at this point, we scroll down to two-factor authentication. You have not enabled two-factor authentication, and we click the enable button. Now, at this point, it is going to ask you to confirm your password. For example, if you had logged in and walked out and somebody else tried to enable it, then this would prevent them, during your brief absence, from registering two-factor against their own device and possibly exploiting your login and creating a weakness this way. So this is basically another point of security in the system. Try and remember the password I just created, of course. There we go. And at this point here, you are going to see that it has created this sort of square barcode. This square code here is a special kind of barcode known as a quick response code. It's kind of like a barcode, but it contains a lot more information and is designed to be rapidly scanned much quicker than a barcode by a computer. And underneath the barcode, these are emergency code. These are basically emergency login codes. So, for example, if for some reason you broke your telephone, you lost access to the two-factor authentication application and the registered code, these codes are one-time use codes. And every time you use one of these, it will let you log in by using this as a 2FA code, a single time as an emergency login in case you get logged out. The idea is that you will copy and paste these codes somewhere secure, write them down, and put them somewhere safe, like in a safe or places where you securely store other confidential information, just in case you need them for later. But otherwise, they're not super important for now, because if you are locked out, you can, of course, ask me, one of the other officers of the organization, or custodians of a platform, depending which way this takes in the future, to reset your authentication for you so you can re-register. Now, what you do with this magic code here, this little magic 2D barcode, is that the two-factor authentication application will let you register the two-factor for this application by scanning the code. So if I, for a moment, change back to the Android application, the telephone application on your smartphone, to register that barcode, what you would do is you would click these three little dots in the top right-hand corner here, click Add Account, and then from that point you would select Scan QR Code. When you click on Scan QR Code, the first time it happens, your telephone might ask you permission to access the camera, because Android, I don't know how this works on iOS, but Android will ask you permission to use a resource the first time you try to do so. So when you click on it the first time on Android, it might ask permission to use the camera. In that pop-up, simply click Allow, which will bring you to a camera screen. And when you have the camera, and when the view on your telephone has turned into the view for your camera, as if you were taking a photograph, what you would do is, if I change back to the desktop web browser, you'll aim the camera at this two-dimensional code here and kind of wiggle it around a bit, and when it catches the barcode just right, it will scan the barcode and it will add the registration for this application to the application on your smartphone, and this basically provides a straightforward way to register an application with the authentication application on the telephone without having to type anything in, so there's no way you can accidentally mistype, misread, or make any mistakes. It's registered there and then at that point. Actually, when it registers, it might ask for final confirmation. So just click yes. Just click yes to save, and then if I change this back again, here we go. When you change it back again, it will look something like this. It will say e-register, and it'll either have your email address or username for the platform you registered, and the 6-digit authentication code. Now I can show you how this works now. I just take a moment how to log in with this code once it is registered in your telephone, just so you're clear how to log in after this point. If I change back to my web browser, there we go. And so I will log out. Now you'll log in with your email and your password, which you created during your registration, and when you click login, it will take you to a second code, a second login screen that asks you, it simply says code here, and this code here is asking for the two-factor code in your telephone application. For example, if I go to the application here, wait for it to reset, make sure it's selecting this one here, the e-register, and I see the code is 169531. And I come over here and enter this code in this box, 169531, from the application, and then click login. And there you go. You are now logged into the platform with your newly created account. Now, it is worth stating that at this point, you won't actually see the list of constituencies here, but you will see another warning box. Because at the point your account is created, a super administrator, such as myself, would then have to verify your registration and then manually actually set which constituencies you have access to control your access to the system, so that you can access to the constituency for which you are registering users for, or in the case of a super admin, I could give you a more global list like this. But generally, you'll receive a restricted limited list of constituencies that only fall within basically your domain, which forms another form of security, so that even if a malicious actor was logged in, they would only be able to see users as part of their constituency, which would either be their geographic domain or the organization for which they are registering members on behalf of, so that even if somebody did maliciously gain access, they would only be able to see a very limited subset of the data set, unless you are given super administrator powers, because, say, you are part of the actual democratic team itself, and needing to administrate and manage the system on a wider scope. But the access to data is limited to only what you need access to. It is a need-to-know system, as opposed to a system that just grants you carte blanche to access anything once you're in. So at this point, you would tell me you are registered in the system. I believe you do receive a warning message here when you are not granted access to any part of the system. And until I've granted you permission, this won't change. But once I have granted you permission, and you said I'm registered now, and I've gone and verified your registration, and here you are, you would then have access to work on voters. And actually working on the system will be the contents of a later video, or before that is available, I will work one-on-one with people in sessions to guide them through adding their first voters to the system. But Let me just set that back here. But overall, this concludes my brief and poorly planned instructional show and tell of how to register with the mandate system and register your two-factor authentication as a new user. And I hope this makes it much more clear and straightforward how to go about this part of the process. Ta-ta.